Hello everyone, this is Dr. Ahmad and today we are going to do a second part of the Diencehpalon and this is going to be a big one as well. It is hypothalamus. Today we are going to learn about the hypothalamus structure overview, take a look at the nuclei, and then we are going to end our discussion with the hypothalamus as a regulator of the pituitary gland. So, what is hypothalamus? It is a collection of various nuclei within diencephalon. Again, it is in the center of the brain, and it plays a vital role in the endocrine regulation and also work as the primary regulator for the pituitary gland. It also acts as a major point of integration between the central nervous system and the endocrine system, and uh, it has multiple roles with the regulation that includes the hormone secretion, autonomic regulation, thermoregulation, food and water intake, circadian rhythm, memory, and emotional behavior. And it receives information and can exert its effect via nerves, blood, and cerebrospinal fluid. So the location of the hypothalamus is in the center of the brain and it is superior to the brainstem right here. And it has two halves just like thalamus. It has right and left halves and it forms the parts of the walls and the floor of the third ventricle. So each half of the hypothalamus, it contains three primary zones or areas and starting from lateral to medial, it has a lateral hypothalamic area, medial hypothalamic area, and the periventricular gray zone. The lateral hypothalamic area has a diffuse fiber system. The medial hypothalamic area contains the defined nuclei, and the periventricular gray zone immediately adjacent to the third ventricle. So we can also divide the hypothalamus into four primary levels. We go from anterior to posterior levels. There's four levels. There's pre-optic area. It is found between the optic chiasm and the anterior commissure and include the lateral pre-optic area and the medial pre-optic area. Then we have a supra-optic area, which is the anterior most level behind the pre-optic area, and it includes the paraventricular nucleus, anterior nucleus, supra-optic nucleus, and suprachiasmatic nucleus. The third area from anterior to posterior is tuberal. It is present between the supraoptic and mammillary levels and includes the lateral hypothalamus, dorsomedial nucleus, and ventromedial nucleus and arcuate nucleus as well. The final area for the hypothalamus is the mammillary area. It is the posterior most level and includes the posterior nucleus and mammillary bodies. So in our next slides, we are going to learn about the nuclei. But before that, hypothalamus, it sends different efferent signals to descending fibers in the brainstem and spinal cord, and that affect the peripheral autonomic nervous system via vagus nerve and sympathetic preganglionic neurons. We have a mammillothalamic tract, which goes from mammillary body to thalamus, and then we have the tegmental tract, which takes from mammillary bodies to tegmentum of the midbrain. And number four, the efferent nerve connections include the limbic system. So let's start with the pre-optic level. The four levels that we have just discussed going from anterior to posterior. The first one is a pre-optic level. The lateral pre-optic area, which is present here, is the continuation of the lateral hypothalamic nuclei. So this picture is going to be repeated again and again. Please familiarize yourself with this because it is all color coded. So the red one is the mammillary region, blue is the tuberal region, green is the supraoptic, and the purple is the preoptic region. So preoptic level, we are looking here at the lateral preoptic area. So right here, lateral preoptic nucleus, it's right there. So it is a continuation of the lateral hypothalamic nuclei. The medial preoptic area right here, it is associated with the sexual arousal and sexual dimorphism. It produces or secretes the GnRH, which is released into the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. We're going to discuss that later. It is also involved in the thermoregulation, and the lesions here will cause the will cause the loss of control of sexual behavior, amenorrhea, and impotence. Now we're going to look at the supraoptic level. The supraoptic level contains several important nuclei, including paraventricular nucleus. It has three divisions: medial division, intermediate division, and lateral division. The medial division synthesizes and secretes a number of hormones regulating the pituitary gland, including the CRH, TRH, GHRH, somatostatin, which inhibits the growth hormone and TSH release, and dopamine, which inhibits prolactin secretion. The intermediate division, it synthesizes the hormones that are released from posterior pituitary gland, including oxytocin, which is the primary secretion, and ADH, which is produced in the smaller amounts. The lateral division of the paraventricular nucleus has some direct projections into the vagus nerve. The next nucleus present in the supraoptic level of hypothalamus is the anterior nucleus. It is the caudal continuation of the medial preoptic area, which is involved in the thermoregulation, cooling, and the sleep. A lesion here may cause hyperthermia. The third one is a supraoptic nucleus, which has a direct projection to the posterior pituitary, and it produces ADH, which is the primary, and the oxytocin, which is produced in the smaller amounts. Then the fourth nucleus here is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it is located just above the optic chiasm and gets a direct input from the retina, and it acts as a master biological clock. So once again, we are looking at the supraoptic region. So we have the paraventricular nucleus right here. We have a anterior hypothalamic nucleus right here, suprachiasmatic nucleus right here, and the supraoptic nucleus right there. The next one is the tuberal level, which is the third level for the hypothalamus. It has lateral hypothalamic nuclei, which is involved in the regulation of appetite and satiety, digestive function, sleep, pain reception, and blood pressure. A lesion here may lead to narcolepsy, motility, and functional GI disorders, and eating disorder due to decreased desire to eat. The second nucleus in hypothalamic tuberal level is the dorsomedial nucleus, which is involved in the physiologic circadian rhythms, ingestive behavior, cardiovascular response to stress. A lesion here may contribute to hyperphagia or overeating and obesity. The third nucleus present in the tuberal level is the ventromedial nucleus, which is involved in the appetite, satiety, energy, and regulation, and it's involved in the fear response via afferent input from the amygdala. A lesion here may contribute to hyperphagia and obesity. And the fourth nucleus in hypothalamus tuberal level is the arcuate nucleus, which is a primary regulator of the anterior pituitary gland via the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system, and it secretes GnRH, dopamine, which is regulates the prolactin secretion, and neuropeptide Y, which regulates the appetite and body weight. A lesion here may cause the galactorrhea and hyperphagia. So let's look at the tuberal level. So tuberal level is bluish in color. So we have dorsal medial nucleus. Then we have the ventromedial nucleus and arcuate nucleus right there. Now, finally, we're going to look at the mammillary level of the hypothalamus. It has a posterior nucleus, which is involved in the thermoregulation or heating of the body, and a lesion here may cause hypothermia. We already discussed the hyperthermia in a different level. Mammillary bodies is involved in the regulating emotions and recollective memory. A lesion here may lead to memory deficit, and it is also involved in pathogenesis of Wernicke encephalopathy. So the final one is the mammillary region. So look at the most posterior part. Then we have the posterior hypothalamic nucleus and the mammillary body right there. So hypothalamus is also the main modulator for the pituitary gland, and it is connected via nerve fibers and via circulation. So there's two ways which it controls it. The key in converting and integrating the nerve signals with the endocrine signal. That's how hypothalamus also controls the pituitary gland. So nerve fibers connection, that's the first one we're going to look at. It is also called as the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. I know it's a mouthful term right there. So basically you're going to look at the hypothalamus and hypophyseal tract. So that's how the nerve fibers are going to go. So neurons in the paraventricular and supraoptic nuclei have a direct projection that ends in the posterior pituitary gland. So the posterior part of the pituitary is controlled by the nerve fibers, and it has two nuclei, paraventricular nuclei involved in it, which primarily produces oxytocin, and it stimulates uterine contraction in labor and milk release during lactation. These are one of the secretions. Then we have the supraoptic nuclei, which is primarily producing the antidiuretic hormone or ADH, which is a vasoconstrictor, which stimulates the increased absorption of water from the renal tubules. So nerve fiber or the hypothalamo hypophyseal tract. So zoomed in picture, so we're looking at this one right here, hypothalamus right there. We have infundibulum and we have the pituitary. So the posterior pituitary gland is connected uh, with the nerve fibers connections or hypothalamo hypophyseal tract. So neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus release oxytocin and ADH into the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland right here, and these hormones are stored or released into the blood via the capillary plexus. The capillary plexus you see right here, it is it is highly vascularized structure, so the hormones, whenever it is needed, it's released into the blood from there. Now the second connection is the bloodstream connection. We have already seen the nerve connection. The second one is the hypothalamo hypophyseal portal system. The portal system is indicating that it's a blood system. So it is formed from the branches off of the internal carotid arteries, and these arteries then travel through the medial eminence, which is the pituitary stalk, and then form the capillaries. And these capillaries surrounds the cells within the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. These neurosecretory cells in the medial zone of the hypothalamus have the projections to the median eminence, which secretes hormones into the portal system, and the hormone released into the portal system for the transit to the anterior pituitary. And when the need arises, these hormone secreting cells release peptide hormones into the general circulation. So what type of hormones that are releasing? So one is the corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone, TRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH, and growth hormone releasing hormone, GHRH. And releasing the inhibiting hormones is somatostatin and dopamine. Once again, we're going to look at the hypothalamo hypophyseal portal system, which is the anterior pituitary. Right here, it is highly vascularized structure. And once again, we have a superior hypophyseal artery, which comes here with the internal carotid artery, make the primary capillary plexus or hypophyseal portal system, and then it highly vascularized the anterior pituitary right there. And secondary capillary plexus of the hypophyseal portal system is right here. Hypothalamus hormone stimulates pituitary to release hormones, and the anterior pituitary hormones are then released into the blood. So this is the final slide. We have discussed the hypothalamus in detail. Please familiarize yourself with the nuclei, as this is a major slides that you're going to be also needing in the endocrine system as well. In the next slide, we're going to discuss the other part of the diencephalon. Thank you so much and stay tuned.